Welcome to the Dream Power Show, where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
This is a time of year when animals are coming out of hibernation, seeds are being sown into the ground. In short, the time of rebirth and new beginnings. This hasn't been lost on this show, as in this episode, we're bringing you experts who can help you shed unproductive habits and spring into your greatest self. First off is Nancy Solari, a coach and inspirational speaker who didn't let blindness prevent her from living her life full out. And she explains how she helps others do it too. We learn so much about ourselves from our dreams, and even more so when we dream about our families. Psychologist and dream expert Edward Bynum shows us what it means when we pay attention to these dreams. Self-expression is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. Poet Michael Ruby tells us about the inspiration behind his work and how dreams have helped shape his unique poetry. And finally, neo-positivity used the law of attraction to retire early, and he shows us how these principles, when used correctly, can help anyone create the life they want. So, are you ready to take a trip into the next chapter of your life? Let's begin. Picture this. A woman wakes up one day and realizes she's not happy in the corporate job she's in. She gives a lot of thought to what her real passion is, what it is she really wants to do to feel productive and fulfilled. She realizes that she loves to bake and has been making fancy cakes for her family and friends for years. She wonders if she could open up her own business doing this. So she starts to plan for it. She researches her community and sees that there's a need for a quality bakery. She works up a business plan and gets a startup loan from her bank to get the space and supplies she needs. She comes up with a clever name and creates a marketing plan to get the word out about her new venture. She's never worked harder in her life, and she's loving every minute of it. I'd say she was living her dream life. My guest, Nancy Solari, might put it another way and say she was living full out. Nancy is the founder of Living Full Out, a business designed to help people discover their purpose and create a positive mindset for success. She offers boot camps for personal development, is also a motivational speaker, and is the host of the Living Full Out radio show. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Nancy.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm super hungry now after that story. I'd love one of her baked goods. Yum.
Me too. It's nice that we can have it right at our side here. But Nancy, did I have it right? Would you say that my example is representative of someone who's living full out?
Absolutely. Living full out is about having tenacity. It's about having that drive, that hunger for life, that desire to reach for more. It's tapping into your purpose. And for all those that get purpose early in life, hooray. Sometimes we get it later in life, right? And then it's also gratitude and enjoying the journey and being willing to turn the page and start over or revamp yourself. So I would say that lady was spot on with living full out.
Well, she is an example of somebody, and again, it's just a hypothetical example of somebody who realized that she wasn't where she wanted to be in life and did something about it. But what do you think keeps people from following their dreams?
A lot of times people, they're worried that they're going to fail. And for all the friends and family that are supporters over the years, a lot of times they can also be triggers, right? They remember all the times we've succeeded, but they know the times we haven't. And a lot of times people are worried about looking good. It's a kind of a casserole, really. And if you allow yourself to sink into the worries, into the hypothetical, into the woulda, coulda, shouldas, then you're going to get gobbled up. Then you're going to be standing still. You're going to be not able to thrive. But if you are able to say, you know what, if I was in Vegas, I would bet on myself. Or if you were to say, you know what, I'm going to take this one life and make the most of it, then you will succeed. So people just have to believe in themselves and then take that leap of faith. And the key word there is faith, because Just like how we have faith in relationships, and that's why people marry each other, right? Just like how we have faith in having business partners, you have to have faith in yourself and know that you have all the right skills, all the right traits to do it.
And what happens when it's hard for you to find that faith in yourself?
Well, that is a great question. The thing about finding that faith is you have to be still and you have to listen to not the negative thoughts in your mind, but listen to your core, listen to your heart. If money were not an issue, if you could just do something that would bring you pleasure and put a smile on your face, what would that be? A lot of times people feel they have to have a certain career. They have to make a certain amount of money. They have to meet certain expectations. But I also know a lot of people that they work for nonprofits, they volunteer, they're entrepreneurial, they take that risk and they have a service or a product and they believe in it so much they're willing to invest 1 year, 10 years to get it to fruition. So the calmness, the listening to your inner voice, that's what faith is.
And do you recommend doing that by methods such as meditation, for example?
Meditation is really important. I know for a lot of times people, they feel like they need to fill the space with the TV or be on the phone or, constantly be doing, even the microwave, right? Heating up a tea, right? But there's something really special about the quiet. The quiet is when you can dream, which is very much a part of your show. The quiet is when you can visualize. The quiet is when you can connect the dots and put that plan together. So meditation is important. I also think surrounding yourself with the right people that do encourage you to reach for more, people that maybe have the career or have that entrepreneurial spirit that you so much want. Because the more you hang around with the people that have that secret sauce, they will naturally elevate you. Make sure you're in an environment that allows you to thrive. Sometimes people need to get out of their home environment and just rent a very small space that they can put things on the wall or have the right lighting, whatever it is that you need to allow yourself to dream, to allow yourself to take action.
Yeah, it's true. And people like artists and writers kind of know this because they will literally go on a retreat so they can focus on what's inside them and allow themselves the space for it to come out. So
Mhm.
absolutely.
Very important. Mhm.
Yeah. One of the other things that you deal with in your program is helping people deal with adversity.
Mhm.
As someone who is legally blind, you've certainly had your share of adversity. So, how do you help people with this?
Well, I personally love adversity, and I think we all have it. It doesn't matter if you were picked on as a youngster. It doesn't matter if you've gone blind like me. Maybe you've encountered abuse over time or addiction, but those are really important moments. Those moments where we're kind of in the trenches, where we've hit our rock bottom. Those moments where our faith is wavers, those moments where we have a gulp, a tightness in our throat. You need those moments sometimes to allow us to have that winning moment. So everybody loves a good movie, right? Where there's a little bit of drama and then all of a sudden at the end, it all wraps up with a bow and everybody's happy, right? Um, that's a lot like how life is. You need a little bit of that drama. You need that moment to rally, that moment to be resilient, that moment to have adversity and overcome it, to be able to have that winning moment, to get the pearls of wisdom. So when I think about going legally blind, it has not been a walk in the park. I mean, I have to learn so many talking devices and keystrokes on my computer because I can't use a mouse, and on and on and on and on. I mean, it's a lot of extra work on top of a long day. But my ability to connect with people, I don't see homeless. I don't see cultural or race. I don't see age. I don't see any of that. I meet people based upon their aura, upon their handshake, their hug, their voice. And it's really become liberating for me. I don't even see competition. I don't see why people are so turned off on social media because they're comparing, what others are doing. I don't see that either. I never realized just how freeing being blind would be.
That is an amazing thing, because most people would see your situation and say, oh, how unfortunate. And it's amazing that you've been able to twist it around and turn it to your best advantage.
Oh, completely, completely. And, I have so many friends that have different health conditions and other disabilities. And I think that they would say the same thing. They wouldn't do it any other way. Now that they know the gift that comes with that adversity, they wouldn't want to go back to being quote, quote, normal. How boring.
This is true. A while back, I was on a retreat, and in it, I came up with a phrase. I don't know if I made it up or I heard it from someplace and it just came out. But so I apologize to anybody who curated it in the first place, but it has served me well. And it's the dark night of the soul leads to the dawn of a new creation. So that when we cut out from the depths, when we get to that dark place, we can go to heights we never imagined if we allow ourselves to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, again, it's interesting, the word dark, because why is dark bad? In the dark, there's peace, there's calm. In the dark, that's when we sleep in the dark. I don't know a lot of people that sleep with the lights on. In the dark is when we oftentimes go and watch a movie. Good things can happen in darkness. Good things can actually happen in moments where we struggle. You just have to look for that silver lining, look for that lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you, it's also another example of the power of language. Because like you said, the word that some people look at as a negative thing, it can be a very positive thing if you look at it the right way. And so many times we will aim those negative words at ourselves, which doesn't allow us to live full out.
Yeah, and that is, you nailed it right there. That what we say to ourselves in our mind that no one hears, what we say to ourselves when we're at home, when we talk out loud, we all do it, right? It's like we're in a daytime soap opera and we're doing a monologue, right? Those are very powerful. And what your ears hear it, your heart hears it, your core hears it. And that's where that faith comes in again, where you have to override it. I actually even say, when I have a negative thought come up, I say out loud, go away. And I tell it to go away. I choose for it to go away.
How do you help people deal with fear?
Well, fear is just one of those things that it's mind over matter. It really is. We can be in fear that somebody's going to break into our home, but they haven't broken into our home. So why are we fearing something that hasn't happened? We can fear, oh gosh, I'm going to go on that dating site and I'm going to meet a stalker, or I'm going to go on there. I'm just going to waste money, waste my time. That's fear. But then there's the what if game. What if you meet the love of your life? What if you find a new friendship? So fear is one of those things that really cuts us off at the knees. It doesn't allow us to walk forward. It doesn't allow us to thrive, to live full out. And the thing about fear I want everybody to know is it's that voice in your head that is not your friend. Okay. We all have that voice in our head that is not our friend. So the minute you start to fear something, know it's that part of you that's not your friend. You need to tell it to go away. You need to tell it that it doesn't have a home here. Okay. You are a living full out person. You are happy. You are thriving. So again, you're saying words to basically stump that fear. You're taking your power back. Really important.
We are just about out of time, so I just have time for one final question, which is,
Yeah.
how can people find out about you and your work?
Oh, that's kind of you. Well, first of all, they can go to livingfullout.com. That's the main hub. And when they go there, they can learn about our personal development boot camp. I actually do an Ask Nancy column for many different publications, and they can see where we are there. And I do a lot of Q&A with readers. They can get access to all 7 of our social media sites. We're on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, Facebook, you name it, all of them, LinkedIn. And the one thing I want everyone to know is we're really about meeting you where you are. Some people love picking up a book, smelling it, reading it, taking it in, curling up on a couch with it. Other people, they need video, audio. That's how they learn best. So we provide all those different avenues for you so that you can live full out.
We've been speaking about living full out with my guest, Nancy Solari. We'll be right back with our next guest. In most of the programs I've done about dreams, I focus on the dreams that individual people have. I want to expand on this a bit and put the focus today on the many dreams that people have that not only affect themselves, but their families as well. These include dreams that people have about other family members, as well as dreams that family members have that are similar to one another. We're going to talk about this with my guest, award-winning psychologist, Edward Bynum. Edward is the author of a number of books, including The Dream Life of Families and Our African Unconscious. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Edward.
Oh, good to be here. Good to be here. I'm excited.
Oh, I am too. It's a wonderful, fascinating subject. But Edward, I want to start off this conversation with a quote that's in your book from dream expert Montague Ullman, who said, quote, "When we dream, we tap into information from some kind of informational black hole. But sometimes we get into that black hole deeper than we thought and touch on something or someone else." Do you believe this is an apt description of family dreams?
I believe it's an apt description of family dreaming on many occasions. Not all of our dreams are about our families. About 20% of our dreams, however, do have some aspect of a family member in them. And not all of our dreams about family members are, by definition, psychic or paranormal or anomalous. But a significant enough percentage are to indicate that periodically we go so deep into our own individual unconscious that we, in a unusual sort of way, touch upon the actual unconscious of someone else that we have an intimate relationship with. And that's why I've developed this notion of a familial or a family unconscious. That is that web, that numinous, energetic system, that fabric of relationships that intertwines all of us together. And it's a not only a physically based one, but it's also a psychically based one and a psychologically based one, and brings together all of our cognitive functions also. So yes, we are primarily individuals, but periodically we enter into a larger web.
Okay, and one of these, what we would call family dreams, is something that's called crisis telepathy dream.
Yes.
That's where we hear family members in trouble in our dreams. So can you elaborate on these type of dreams?
Yeah, crisis telepathy is a very specific kind of dream. Most of the time when we're dreaming, we are supposedly, quote, unconscious, i.e. sleeping, not aware of what we're doing physically. And we have a drama, a narrative that plays itself out. Those are most of our dreams. And again, roughly 20% of those involve our family members. However, there's a particular kind of dream referred to in the clinical literature as a crisis telepathy dream, in which we have access in ways that are not totally clear to the intimate information going on with somebody that we have a close relationship with. And we call it crisis telepathy because it's defined by certain particular behavioral and cognitive parameters. One, we already have a prior relationship with someone. So that's why it's a family web or a family connectedness or family shared experiences, which we refer to as family unconscious. Two, something happens dramatically to the person, to one of our family members, usually a close to death experience, a very frightening one, such they're very agitated at that moment. And the person, and they quote, send out, unquote, a pattern or a message or information into that system. And the third part is that the person who, quote, receives the information, unquote, is often in a very quiet state, either sleeping, dreaming, resting, or something like that. That particular pattern categorizes that crisis telepathy situation. So it happens not like normal anomalous behavior of telepathy, but rather in a specific life-threatening situation, a crisis. And it is well documented in the literature. It's been well known in the literature for close to a century. It's just that we don't know quite how to explain it. And so we tend to ignore things that we can't explain.
It happens a lot where we just ignore things like this.
We just ignore it because we don't have any traditional energetic informational systems way to explain it. But phenomenologically, it happens. And it's happened to millions of people.
And do these dreams usually or almost always involve death of some?
They usually involve either death or the threat of death. It's a very heightened situation. And there are times and other kinds of dreams, and not necessarily called crisis telepathy, but they're very similar, in which somebody's actually leaving this life and they're dying. And as they are leaving this life and they're moving through their experience at the end of life, they will very often be perceived by someone in their family who's very remote physically from them. And they don't know that, clockwise that they're dying at this time, but they all of a sudden have a profound intuition, or there's sometimes a direct communication. And again, we don't understand that quite either, but it happens. It's similar to the phenomenon of what's referred to as a NDE, or near-death experience. Near-death experiences happen to thousands of people every day on the planet, in the United States and on the earth. And it is well documented what the phenomena is, but we don't have an explanation for it. And so you still have people this late in the game, this late in the new age, this new modern era, denying people's experience that is replicated thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So that's part of the arrogance of our science today. Someone has this experience and we say, well, you brought chemicals in your brain, and they refuse to acknowledge that there is direct information very often communicated here. So again, the world is much bigger and wider than our theories are about the world.
Mm-hmm. And how would these kind of dreams differ from what we call visitation dreams?
Well, that is a kind of visitation dream. That is a kind of visitation dream. Visitation dreams are, by the way, more common or commonly recognized in certain groups in the world than others. In other words, people who are more psychologically, culturally open to that are much more likely to actually perceive or remember or allow themselves to remember situations like that. And so you find many people certainly in the African American tradition, certainly in people in South America, people in India are much more open to that this occurs, whereas oftentimes that phenomena is actively denied or repressed in large places in the United States and Europe. Not all, but there are cultural influences on memory. We know this is true. We know memory is affected by anxiety and repression and so forth. And so if you're more open to it, you're more likely to see it. It's what it's like. It's a little bit like the old and replicated dozens of times sheep's, goats, ESP studies. They get people who don't believe in all this ESP stuff. And the people who are much more open to it. Maybe. And then they give them a random test about ESP. The people who are open to it statistically score higher on objective tests about it than those who don't. So there's something that we don't quite understand going on here about our openness, our psychological boundaries, and so forth. And our psychological boundaries, they're not hard and fast and physical. They are not, and it's the same with consciousness. We're conscious in the womb before we're physically born. We don't all of a sudden become born and then pop, become conscious. No, for some period of time, we were conscious before we were born. And from near-death experiences, clinically replicated, or I should say, observed thousands of times, we are, quote, dead, cognitively, unquote, for some period of time after physical death. So the beginning of life and the end of embodied physical life are not exactly identical to the clinical measures of that.
Edward, you spoke earlier about quantum mechanics and how, it's all about the idea of connectivity. And
Yes.
one place where connectivity is demonstrated is in the idea of dreams that family members have that are similar to each other. So
Yes.
can you expand on this a bit and explain how this happened to.
Well, if you stop and reflect on it for a little bit, what group of people do you know that you often have been living with for decades, eating food with for decades, going to sleep with for decades, have the same sleeping patterns, and also have important, intense emotional and cognitive relationships with? There are family members, for better or for worse, they're family members. And so that creates a kind of web or system or informational field, if you want to think of it that way, that has a certain degree of cohesion and extension through usually what we think of as space and time. That is a family unconscious field. Certain parallel or coordinating tendencies arise in that. We're constantly talking about someone in the family reminds us of somebody else in the family, or someone in the family reminds us of someone we knew in our family earlier. You remind me of my grandmother, blah, 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 or something. There are just lots of parallels, including sometimes in names and so on. It's not that because it's not random, totally, people choose, but there are coordinating tendencies that occur. And so those coordinating tendencies contribute to the similar content and dynamic processes of our dreams. You're in a family event, either a wedding or a funeral, a birth or something, and there are many different family members involved in that. Well, we all share the same experience. We experience it differently, but we're all aware of this new birth that's coming to the family. So it's like we all have a slightly different point of view over the same phenomena, kind of like a hologram. But from that fragment of a hologram, you can reconstruct the entire hologram. But to use that analogy, we're different. Each one of us is a slightly different angle in that hologram. But from that, we can reconstruct and find what everybody in that hologram, so to speak, is viewing. So it's an analogy, but that's the basic sense of a coordinated informational and energetic field that influences behavior, including clinical behavior.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So when people in families have similar dreams, does it usually revolve around a crisis situation?
No, most of the time it's not. You go to a wedding and of an important person in the family, and all of you may have a different take on the wedding, what happened, it reminds you of this, and so on and so forth. And you all have different kinds of dreams. That's not a tragic event. You just all happen to be dreaming that you went to Cape Cod and you spent the weekend, sunny weekend, and you had a great time. And, Bob and whomever were married that time, and it was a signal event that summer. So most of the time it is not, but occasionally it is. And when those happen, those are usually either crisis telepathy, which is very specific, like we were talking about earlier, or a visitation dream, and sometimes what's called a prodromal dream. And what a prodromal dream is when we have a feeling or an image or a combination of those in our dreams that foretells of our own physical illness in some sort of way, which shouldn't be so surprising since our unconscious is in touch with our somatic physical self and our psychological self. So that's not so unusual, but a prodromal dream. The illness shows up in a dream before it's actually recognized clinically by the person.
Edward, how can people find out more about you and your work?
They can go to, well, I would love it if people would pick up a copy, obviously, of The Dream Life of Families, but they can also go directly to my website, which is www.obelisk Foundation, like an Egyptian obelisk, www.obeliskfoundation.com, like an obelisk, obeliskfoundation.com, and it will show that. But you can pick up the book on Amazon, many bookstores. It's easily gotten, simple paperback. And it's written to be read and understood and to be enjoyed. It's not a technical monograph.
We've been talking about family dreams with psychologist Edward Bynum. We'll be right back with our next guest. When people ask me why they should pay attention to their dreams, I often bring up the great accomplishments that came about as a result of dreams, such as Elias Howe's invention of the sewing machine, or of the dreams that led to Albert Einstein creating the theory of relativity, and of Dmitri Mendeleev, who created the periodic table of the elements. I also talk about something that's nearer and dearer to my heart, the great works of creativity that came about from dreamers like Mark Twain, Paul McCartney, and Salvador Dali, just to name a few. They were onto something, as they realized their dreams gave them access to the imagination within themselves and sparked their ability to transform those nighttime inspirations into daytime works of art. One such person is here now. Michael Ruby is a poet who says he describes what he sees with his eyes closed. Michael is the author of a number of books of poetry, including Memories, Dreams, and Inner Voices, American Songbook, and Compulsive Words, and he's here to talk about dreams and the creative process. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Michael.
So much for having me, Debbie. I love dreaming and writing down dreams and talking about dreams.
Well, then I'm going to ask you this, Michael. When did you first start paying attention to your dreams?
When I was a senior in college, to fulfill a social sciences requirement, I took Introduction to Sigmund Freud. And that was the first time I really read about dreams. And some months after that, I started occasionally writing down dreams. And I occasionally wrote down dreams for more than a decade after that. And then I started having these, what I would call outbursts or floods of dreams, where I might remember or write down 100 dreams in a year. And I've had a number of those in the decades since.
And when did you start writing poetry?
I started writing poetry a few years before that, when I was a senior in high school, freshman in college.
Now that you are a dreamer, does all of your poetry come from your dreams?
No, I wouldn't say that at all. I tend to write up my dreams and consider the dreams to be works of fiction, not so much as poetry. In my poetry, I have occasionally written poems that basically were, you might say, versified dreams. And I think the poetry that I've done related to dreams that's been, strongest from my point of view is where I've, instead of writing up a dream, I've taken a lot of dreams, for example, and written down for each dream, what's the moral of the dream? And the moral of the dream could be something very simple and stupid, like don't buy cheap raincoats or cheap umbrellas, or It could be very serious, you know, wear a coat and tie at the border so you're not hassled by police, and made a poem out of these morals. I then also took the places that were in my dreams, and I made a poem out of those called A Dreamer's Itinerary. And then I took the situations of dreams and made a poem out of those. So it's been through a kind of abstracting that I've, written my most dream-related poems. But in poetry in general, I would consider myself a surrealist, which is highly related to dreams, in that I try to just open my mind and listen for whatever words are arising and write those down. And sometimes I will use a prompt to what I would call displace those words within me, such as even you, or I'm not going to think about it anymore, or the moon light on the ocean, any of those things.
I want to go back to something that you said a little while ago, which you said that, you consider yourself a fiction writer using your dreams. Do you think that we can all be fiction writers by paying attention to our dreams?
Well, I think we all are fiction writers in our dreams, and that's one of the most amazing things about dreams. We go to sleep and we make up stories, lots of stories, most of which we don't remember, but a few of which we might. And I would even say that it's very possible that dreams are the first stories that humans ever created or experienced, because we do both create them and experience them. So yes, I think we are all fiction writers. We're all movie makers. I mean, dreams feel a lot like movies. We're certainly all virtual reality creators. It seems to me that a dream is exactly like a virtual reality. And it's interesting that we've been creating virtual reality after virtual reality in our sleep for probably hundreds of thousands of years. And it's only now in the last years that our conscious minds have gained the ability to create virtual reality or movies, etc.
It just took us a long time to make that connection, but you're true about what you said about dreams being our first stories. There's a lot of evidence, that dreams and recorded dreams have gone back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And one of the first tablets of Sanskrit that was found was when they finally were able to figure out to translate it. It was a dream.
Right.
Wrote down. So it certainly has been the case. But in order to do something with the stories that are in our head, we have to be able to remember them first. So how do you remember your dreams?
It is difficult to remember dreams. What's been most useful to me is when I wake up and remember, let's say, some of a dream, I will open up a notebook and just take a few notes. I mean, sometimes it's as little as 5 words. And then later on, let's say when I have a little bit of time, I will, sit down with that and write up what I remember of the dream. And usually those words, lead me to far more than just themselves. So that would be the main way. And I think also it's, if possible, one should write up a dream right when they wake up. The way to remember a dream is to focus on it immediately.
Well, that is true, because it lies in our extreme short-term memory. And if we don't record it, it will disappear. And we may remember having a dream, but we're not going to remember the specifics of it. So you do it old school. You actually write it down with a pen on paper.
Well, or sit at a computer and type it into a Word document. I do that too. And what you were saying about dreams and forgetting them is, I almost think of them as like these beautiful soap bubbles with, multicolors that pop and there's nothing. And that's an amazing fact about dreams, that they can just disappear. And it points to an aspect of our total dream life, which is that it's the dreams we remember of the tip of the iceberg. There's 10 times or 50 times or 100 times as many dreams that we have that we don't remember. So it's a whole hidden life.
It is interesting when you were talking about dreams being a soap bubble. It almost sounded like a poem.
Would be a poetic image for sure.
So do you think that your way of recording your dreams differ from other artists who've talked about their processes for recording their dreams?
Yes, I do, Debbie. There have been a good number of dream books published, and different writers have taken different approaches. My approach has been what I would call a hyper realistic approach, where I'm trying to nail down every detail and every situation as clearly and extensively as possible, because part of the reason I write down dreams is I'm fascinated by how detailed they are, how many people there are in them. But now some other writers, with a number of American writers in the Beat generation, wrote dream books or wrote down a lot of dreams. And for example, Jack Kerouac has one called a dream book, in which he says that he usually hurriedly wrote them down while he was half asleep, right after waking up. And that produces a very different kind of text than what I'm trying to do, which is to be very detailed and work out exactly what I saw and what happened. Now, another American dream writer, William S. Burroughs, his last published book is a dream book called My Education. And what he does is he's constantly expanding from discussing his dreams to going out into his life and contextualizing his dreams and showing how it becomes a way of telling about his life. And I think that's a very valuable book. There are a number of French authors who, took a more poetic approach, such as Marguerite Yourcenar and Georges Perec and Michel Leiris, spelled Leiris. It's a book his dream book, I think, is really great. So, it's a little surprising that I, whom a poet, would take such a fictional, prosaic approach to dreams, but that's been my interest. Whereas these other writers, some of them, the dreams went right into poetry, and the surrealists like Andre Breton and others were very much like that as well.
Your daytime job is as an editor at the Wall Street Journal, which involves critical thinking and hard and fast rules of language and format. And I think of that as sort of being the opposite of the poetry that you have. So how do you align those two different parts of yourself?
I consider them to be opposite activities, or close to opposite activities within language use. I mean, they are both uses of language. So in that sense, they're in the same genus, let's say. But I do consider them to be opposite activities. And people sometimes ask me, has working as an editor of US political stories and newspaper stories in general had any effect on my poetry? And the main effect is, I would say it's caused me to be clear. I mean, you might laugh at that, having read some of my things, but in journalism, we want to be clear. We want to be understood. And in poetry, we don't necessarily want to be clear, and we don't always necessarily want to be understood, but it's always a worthwhile goal. Clarity.
Definitely, definitely. How can people find out more about you and your work?
Well, a lot of my books are available on Amazon.com. They're available at Small Press Distribution, SPD. Everything is in print. I think I have a Wikipedia page that would link to a lot of my ebooks, such as my ebooks called Close Your Eyes, in which I described what I saw with my eyes closed. Or I have another ebook, Titles and First Lines, which is a big long poem, which has those columns of words that you were talking about. So those would be some ways.
We've been talking about dreams and poetry with poet Michael Ruby. We'll be right back with our next guest. Almost 2 decades ago, the movie The Secret introduced millions to the concept of the law of attraction, the idea that you can manifest whatever you want out of life. But too many people didn't fully understand what it really meant. And when it didn't work for them, they dismissed the whole idea as a hoax. But not everyone. My guest, Neopositivity, took the ideas behind the law of attraction to heart. And as a result, he went from being a police officer to a messenger for transformation. He's here now to explain how you can use the law of attraction for your own personal growth so that you can live your dream life. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Neo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for such a great introduction. I like how you swapped me from police officer to that messenger.
Well, we're going to get into that because I say Neo, it's not the name you were born with, right?
No, my birth name is Nehemiah, which I kind of just found out not too long ago means, I think it means new beginning, like Neo and Maya. So that's pretty cool that I've been led down this path. So
How fitting for you.
Yeah, I'm on it. I like it. Things like that, I let be my confirmation. All right, just keep this. Why you gotta keep going? You know, you're meant to do this.
So why Neopositivity?
Well, they started calling me Neo from the Matrix. With the whole police department and me running around doing all kind of crazy stuff. And then after that, with the whole positivity, it just kind of became a thing. But originally, that was the name of this philosophy, so to speak, that I created. Where you take the law of attraction and you get rid of some stuff, and you take religions and you get rid of certain stuff, and you end up with this perfect system. So that's actually what neopositivity is. It just became a stage name for me as time went on.
Mm-hmm. And also explained your philosophy. So it does double duty.
Yes. That's where you got to do it. Got to make sure it's happening in the background. That's why I always love wearing this Thoughts Become Things shirt. I want to be a walking billboard for awareness or consciousness, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. But first you traveled the path of where you were working as a police officer, and then you saw the movie The Secret. And what happened after that?
I was obsessed. I mean, it didn't take long in the movie before I was lining up. It was like puzzle. It was like every event in my life had puzzle pieces missing, and they all got filled in immediately. It was an upload/download of information. So anyway, yeah, I got obsessed. I knew that meditation would be the fastest and easiest and smoothest way to fully implement the law of attraction in my life and learn more about the law of attraction. So I immediately started trying to learn how to meditate, which it wasn't, I was just like everybody else. I'm like, why won't my mind stop doing this? Like, calm down. But then I used my little cheat code, which I got from the movie The Secret, where they say, I'm so happy and thankful for. So I said, I'm so happy and thankful that I know how to meditate. I'm so happy and thankful that I'm great at meditating. I'm so happy and thankful that I enjoy meditating. And so I kept on that. And I remember that was the 16th day of trying. And I would say failing for the first 16 days, with the thoughts just going wrong randomly. Seemingly randomly. And when I started doing that exercise, it was done from there. I immediately started liking it more and more to the point where it became one of my favorite activities, and it still is.
Yeah. What do you get out of meditation?
A couple things. Being present is the basis for all the mental exercises I've created and all the ones I've heard of. So you get that out of meditation. You also get stillness, peace, and that's just, peace of mind type in that moment. But what the most important thing you get is your brain is like, picture a chain, chugga, 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 just chugging away for 30, 40, 50 years that you've been alive. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to try to slow it down because you just got super bad news and you got to figure your way out of it. No, that's not how, we can't just slow it down. That'd be like shooting a BB gun at a freight train. You're not even going to do anything to its progression. So in order to quiet the mind and learn how to quiet the mind, you have to first practice quieting the mind, which by definition is meditation. And that's what led me to want to do it in the first place, because I knew that I was going to have to, for one, quiet the mind, make my obsessive thinking, its current state of mind, and most of the people walking today is obsessive thinking. That's what psychology calls it. If I can find a way to shut that down a little bit, slow it down a little bit, that was the goal. And I knew meditation was going to be the only way to make that happen. So it's all around. You breathe better, which does different things to your body, your mentality, being able to stop. It's just all around better in 85 different ways. Meditation, it's everything I thought it was going to be. I basically meditate every night from midnight till 2 a.m.
Well, Neo, something that seems to hold most people back when trying to put these principles to use is their ego. Talk to me how the ego wants to keep us small and what we can do about it.
Oh man, the ego, you better understand, when you have a better understanding of something, you can live with it better. And that was my whole thing with the ego. I wanted to know, like I said, it was torture trying to meditate. For the first 16 days, as soon as I stopped, it was just, you can't do this, you can't do that. How are you going to do that? How are you going to pull that off? And so I immediately wanted to study the ego. I need to know more about it so I can work with it somehow. And what I learned was at the ego, for one, it's a part of you, and hating it is hating you, which manifests more of you hating a part of you, which is something we don't want to do. The ego is a part of you. Love it, live with it. It is just doing its job. And that's the second part. The ego has one job: to bring you back to this current moment. So when you picture yourself somewhere else as a different looking person, as a different status of person, the ego bring you back to this moment. It will use the subconscious, which has stored everything you've ever seen and heard, as its database of information to pull you back. You say you're a millionaire, it's going to show you your bank statement. Say, no, you're not. You say, I'm in the Bahamas and it feels good to be on a beach. It's going to say, no, you're not. You're at your house in Florida or wherever you're at. It's just doing its job, which is to keep you present. Now, why does it want to keep you present? Why is it fighting so hard? The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, an amazing book. Actually, right here, for those of you who can see. It doesn't acknowledge the future or the past. And you got to think about it. Have you ever touched, tasted, or seen anything in the future? No. When you experienced it, it was in this seemingly reoccurring current moment. And the same thing goes for the past. That's just memories of previous current moments. So the subconscious nor the ego don't acknowledge the future or the past. So when you start to spend time there, it'll cut you off in a heartbeat to get you back to the present. I want to give you this. I know everyone's heard, if you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plan, because his plan is so much bigger than yours. So how do you let God's plan unfold? Well, think about it. When you think about the future or the past, you're basically watering seeds. You're manifesting your version of the future into your life. But when you're present, that's when you're letting God's plan unfold. That's why the present is called the present, because it's the present. That's why the subconscious wants you here. That's why it uses the ego to get you here, because this is where it wants you to be. And this is where you belong. This is where you will find happiness. When you're thinking about the future, you're making this moment a means to an end. And that's that. If anything's blasphemy, that's blasphemy. When you get present and you get home and you learn how to meditate, you'll notice, and I know you've noticed this, Debbie, when you get real quiet and you're not worried about that next thing you're going to purchase or that last thing you purchased and whether it was a good purchase. And you're here in this moment, it only takes a couple of seconds before you start to appreciate something. Yourself, your health, air, the computer, you'll start to appreciate something automatically. And that's where you want to be.
You hold monthly summits where you talk about this. So tell me a bit about them.
Oh man, well, as soon as I retired, I had this, I just started interviewing people that knew about the law of attraction, because where I'm from in New Jersey, you're surrounded by New York, Philly, and Delaware and Atlantic City. It's just all negativity coming from all directions. You say law of attraction, they've never even heard of it. They don't want to hear about that hippie stuff. And so I knew I had to go reach out, to outside of my area. And that's what I did. So I just started interviewing people one at a time for 13 years. And last January, because when I interview people, we get such great information out of each other. It becomes a great learning experience, and we end up, sharing exercises. I said, you know what? Why do one person at a time when I can have a whole group of people all shooting ideas off each other, an audience asking them questions, lightning rounds, digging deep, no fluff answers, be positive and stay No. I want to get deep. I want to know what you do when your mind goes to that negative rabbit hole, how you keep it out of there all day, not just this moment. I try to get deep with all the questions and have some really good speakers come on. So that is every month. It's on the third Saturday of every month. April 16th is the next Neo Positivity Thoughts Become Things Summit from noon to 4 p.m. Eastern time on I'll be doing it on Zoom, but it'll be live on like a bunch of different platforms. So anything Neo Positivity related, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, if we can get it on Instagram, because it's 4 hours. I just want it everywhere. It's a free summit because everybody else's summit costs like $500 or $1,000. And I know that a good 75% of the world is going to say that they can't afford to spend that on a self-help summit. And I know that we need that 75% to make change.
Okay, so somebody who wants to attend one of these summits, how do they get access to it?
Neo Positivity's Thoughts Become Things Summit Facebook group. I'll actually send you the link, Debbie, so you can throw it up there for me. It's the Facebook group, and that is where you'll be able to watch the summit free and just get all the information. And there's a landing page I'll give you. It has all of the past summits, speakers, anybody specifically you want to hear from. It's all laid out for you. There's a spot on the website where you can search your topics: relationships, meditation, childhood trauma, whatever it is. I've done over 1,000 live streams. They're all on there, just interviewing different people and different areas, doctors, it's just everything is there and everything is free. I don't want anyone to have money as an excuse. I'll get my money elsewhere. I'm good at manifesting that. I need to get this message out at all costs, and I'm not going to block it because you don't have $69.95.
Well, we've been speaking with Law of Attraction Master Neo Positivity. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If you have, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.